All right, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very excited for our speaker for this My Field for Dummies webinar for the month of October, and very importantly, happy Bat Month to everyone. I'm so stoked to be able to have Jose as our speaker today, who's going to be featuring so many awesome pictures of bats and other wildlife. But it is a great way to kind of kick off Bat Month. So celebrate bats this month. The last week of October is Bat Week. So get out and do all of your batty events and share the love of bats. Next month, we are going to be having our next speaker is postdoc researcher Philip Olbaum, who is studying bat niches and with stable isotopes. So you can be ready for next month's speaker as well. But without further ado, I am very excited to introduce Dr. Jose Martínez-Fonseca, who is going to be talking to us about using photography to research and understand and appreciate bats to their fullest. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Jose Martínez-Fonseca.
Well, thank you, Dana. I really appreciate the invite, and thank you everyone for being here. Um, I will say that it is a bit different for me because I won't be presenting any data or statistical analysis in this presentation, but I do hope you find something fun and interesting. I will like to start saying that my day job is I'm a researcher. I'm not a full-time photographer, but a lot of what I do has to do with wildlife habitat relationships and how landscapes influence the occurrence of species and what this species needs to remain in such landscapes or habitat patches. I mostly work in the southwestern United States, but I try to keep active research in Central America, especially Nicaragua, where I'm from, working with bats and rodents, but also amphibians and reptiles. Um, but today I'm very happy to share my work with wildlife photography, and I would like to quickly kind of give you an idea of how I started. I always like animals and nature, but I started my formal career as an engineer. However, since I was young in high school, I was always looking for animals. When I was 19, I won a little photography contest with this photo. I don't can see it's a mantis eating a dragonfly. And the prize for this little contest was to go to El Salvador to a biology conference. So after returning from that, I was studying engineering. I returned from that, and the next year I attended also a bat workshop, and the rest is history, like as we say. I switched careers, and I just realized that biology was what I wanted to do, and a big part of that was photography. Nowadays, photography is as big as a passion as it is biology. I truly enjoy documenting all the animals and places I go to conduct field work, or sometimes it's just like vacation. Um, and I also enjoy a lot of types of photography. So those who have seen some of my photos see that I do photograph other things that are not just bats, but of course, I'm gonna talk on this presentation about wildlife and special focus with the bats, which are the subjects that kind of get the most attention, I think. And um, I also think that with a group like this, I don't have to insist much on convincing you how great photography is as a tool, but just real quick, I would like to highlight why photography is a great tool for research and conservation. First, research. photography is a powerful tool that allows us to document for the future. Um, this could be like museum specimens, or it could be photographing live animals to make catalogs, to use them in field guides, or to see things that we couldn't see with our naked eyes. So things of like that could be like really small, like this moth that I'm showing here, or things that are in different wavelengths than what our eyes can see, right? So like think of like ultraviolet, infrared, etc. I think like a lot of us are pretty familiar with this kind of photography. But second, and I would say equally important, is that we as biologists are able to go to places and to see species that most people will never be able to see. And this could be even like in your local area. I feel like it's almost our duty to share to the rest of the world what we see and what these animals and places. So yeah, as an example, here's my friend Daniel Ramos rappelling down into a cave in near Mexico City, looking for hibernating bats. And this is me looking for a roost of Cretopterus, um, pretty pretty close from home. Um, so like most people might not stick their head into a tree hole to try to see something, despite the tree being very nearby, houses and everything. But we get to see these animals, and we should be able to share them with more people. And wildlife photography comes in very different flavors. Famously, a lot of wildlife photography focus in large cats or predators, but there are a lot of other small animals that are often very forgotten. And this is a species of New Mexico jumping mouse that I work with. Um, and these small species are equally beautiful. A lot of them have really bright colors and textures, and often they are way more than those bigger, more iconic animals. And photography can help us captivate the public and promote their conservation, not only conserving the animal, but also their habitat, and reaching an audience that among people that otherwise probably will have had little interest, or just will have not been able to properly see the species we're working with. And bats are unique, without a doubt. Some they they don't have that like um, of course they are beautiful, but it's a bit of it will take most people a bit of time to kind of like be able to see a bat in a way that is not just a blob flying in the night, right? So um, they really need to see them up close, see all these adaptations in the face, and I think that's what made them like a really great subject. However, and this is a slide I took from another presentation, that where I was explaining why bats are a challenging group for research. A lot of these things can also apply for photography. Um, They are nocturnal, they have slow reproductive cycles, which means if you want to document the life cycle of an animal, it takes a lot of time and it's really hard. They have different behaviors, that are relatively small in the most part, and they are harder to detect or find. So I'm not saying that other species are easy to photograph, but there are definitely some difference between photographing bats or uh, or photographing a medium to large diurnal animal. Also, bats are a big group of species. We are just celebrating the species 1500. Um, and some of those are very, very common. Some other ones are very rare. Some are small or tiny. Um, some other ones you can photograph them during the day. Other ones you will never find them during the day. Um, they have complex morphology that can be tricky to capture, but also they have all these different behaviors that are equally hard to be in the right moment and the right place, right? But I think it's because of all these unknowns and challenges that bats are also a great subject for photography, and that really helps capture the minds of the public and researchers alike. Um, I found this meme, I don't know who made it, I found it in Facebook, and I really like it. But it illustrates the range of uh, audiences that you can have with bat photography. So from like a meme on Facebook to a figure on a paper reporting new localities for bats. And and again, I really enjoy when photography is able to reach a broader audience, often in the other side of the world. So I like when I see some of my photos features on websites that are from other countries, and I kind of know what they say there, but I sometimes I'm try to find a way to translate it because there are images not as easy as copying text into translator. But it's always like a very positive, a lot of like fascination. I love to see the comments of people that are like, oh wow, like I didn't know there was more than one species of bat, or um, they will put names on them. And you will think that the amount of people interested in bats will be relatively niche or reduced, but bats have this ability to capture the general public like nothing else. Um, and again, I think it's like the diversity of the faces. People, once they see them up close, they can even like assign personalities uh, to them real quick. Like, oh, like this. Or sometimes it's like, oh, this bad, that's me. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Okay, so wildlife photography, it's great. But I would like to show you a bit of the behind the scenes of how you do that. And like I say, I do a lot of different photography, and this photo, I'm setting up a camera trap in Nicaragua. And what you can tell here is there's a lot of like PVC, duct tape, there's a rebar, straps. There's a lot of improvisation to use what you have to try to get what you want in terms of like animals and the photo. And one of the things I find the most satisfying to me is about photography is to find the solutions and to at least try a solution, I guess. Um, um, Putting together things that might not be meant for photography, but like I might work, or like a workaround. Budgets are usually limited, so you have to adapt what you have to your gear, to your specific situation. So I spend a lot of time like maybe soldering some components or thinking how I'm gonna strap a camera to some back roost and what camera might work better, or how we're gonna be retrieving the data, etc. And in some cases, like this was a camera trap. I use our dog to help me like test the setup, etc. And despite all the preparation, nature will always surprise us. And I think I like this photo because it kind of illustrates that. We could be like really close to what we want. This is my friend Charles trying to photograph a kid fox there was a family of kid foxes living in this abandoned house in an airfield in Nevada, and you can tell the fox was almost where he's looking for. But with enough patience, creativity, and luck, you eventually will get something. Now, everything has risk. In the case of um, camera trapping, I I set up this camera for 2 months in the rainforest, and you can tell it's all fuzzy because water started getting into the housing that I had built. I left some hole somewhere, I guess, and water was coming in. I got what I probably would have been my best jaguar photo, but the camera died a few days after. So sometimes it's a bit of like a high risk, high reward situation. And I will give you another example just because I that is not about bats, but just because I was able to document kind of like the process. And this is with the New Mexico jumping mouse, a species that I study. And with this species, we wanted some photos that will showcase the animal, but also will showcase um, the environment where they live. And mice can be very challenging because they are skittish, they're fast, they will stay in a single place. For example, here I tried to get a photo, and you can see the New Mexico jumping mouse jumping away. And also, like I say, we wanted to be shown in a kind of like natural um, environment. This is a different species, but we were going for something that wasn't just a white background. So I came up with the idea of making a box for rodents. Um, I call it my mouse box, and um, I was I created several different versions. I tested with other animals that weren't like in danger. I try a lot about the lighting, and there were a lot of different versions of that mouse box. Here you can see this is the version 2.0 and making slight improvements. Um, but eventually I was able to go to the field and construct a little diorama inside the box and get the photos that we wanted for the project, and also other species that were in target, but we were able to kind of document the diversity of rodents in the area. Um, I will say it was a lot of work, even photographing an animal inside the box. Some animals will just go like under one of those little rocks, and I will have to like deconstruct the whole thing to get the animal back, and then put the diorama back together, put the mouse again. Um, and one of the reasons is like we had to do this in the field because if in the event of the animal escaping, that animal should have not been away from home. Uh, so yeah, we have to carry this to different places. And that photo of the jumping mouse didn't end it with the mouse box. So I continue working on the technique to the point that I was able to kind of get rid of the box and started making more photos of the animal with the full environment. So this is not like a Photoshop photo; it's a single shot. But um, yeah, once the pressure was off, I was able to experiment a bit more with animals in the environment. But that's kind of like the same idea. You start with something relatively simple, and then you continue working on that, hopefully improving your techniques. with bats is not different. And one of the things I would like, and I've been working lately, is to try to get bats that come to feeders or hummingbird feeders. Um, I want one photo of with the full extended tongue. And so far, I only have a couple nights to try it. And two nights that I was trying, only two animals came. And the first one came where I was still setting up, and the second one came slightly after, but I wasn't able to do any adjustments. But I'm sure this is one idea that it's starting like this, and it's gonna progress over time as long as I have some time to keep trying. And and I want to remind you again, I'm not a full-time photographer, so a lot of the photography I do is during my research time. So in the best cases, and I'm going to show you what that looks, and is that in the best cases, um, we will have a little processing station, and in the back, kind of a bit away from it, I will set up my photography gear, and if there's enough people or we have like enough time in between processing bats, or we have like a very special species or something, then I will run from the processing station to go get some photos and release the bat once it's already done, right? And there are two main um, photography setups for bats that I try to have with me the most I can. Um, One is the um, sorry, one is the portrait setup, which is a lot of the photos that you know me for. It's a relatively simple setup. It's a couple of flashes. It can be one, it can be three, but depending on the amount of time, it's a couple flashes on big diffusers that kind of help get rid of like um, harsh shadows in the faces of the animals, and also allows me to hold the animal and take the photo at the same time. So I don't need I don't need to have another person most of the time like assisting me with the photography, because usually people are already busy processing our bats, and that way also I don't have to like it can be very tricky, as you know, holding the bat and getting the right angle that you wanted. So like if it's another person holding it, trying to explain like you want it a higher, lower, a bit to the left, a bit to the right. No, my right, your left, or whatever. So it's kind of like it goes a lot faster when you can if you can do both. The other setup is this bat box, which I had a mouse box and I have this bat box. And that's the one that I used to be able to get really detailed photos of bats in flight. And the way this works is that um, I release a bat inside this box, and once the bat leaves the box, there's a sensor that triggers the flashes. The cameras are already pre-focused to that exact point. I use a little target to focus that I put over the exit. Um, so I put it there. All the cameras are focused on that point that aligns with the with the sensor, and everything has to be in the dark. So once once the bat flies out, the flashes goes off, and the cameras are pre-focused and are already making a long exposure. We only get that light from that exact moment of the bat leaving the box. So that way you can get a really sharp photo of the bat in that moment. And I want to be clear. I let the bat fly out. I don't like toss it or anything, but It works with some animals, it doesn't work with others. Like molluscs are especially tricky. This method doesn't work very well for that. But yeah, philostomats are great. A lot of like the forest dweller species are really good at flying out of the box. I've had Natalus funnel earbats that will stay inside the box just flying in circles. It's pretty amazing. And like I say, this technique is really good at getting very close, high detail. But in recent maybe during the last year, I've been trying to do more in situ photos and trying to minimize the mani with or let's say no manipulation at all of the animals. And the principle is pretty similar to the one of the bat box, and is that you put a trigger in this case is I was trying to get photos of bats coming to drink water. So you find a pond that you think they are using. You cannot try to guess where the animal is gonna dip. You pre-focus all the cameras to that point, and then you use one or several cameras to try to get that photo when the animal comes and triggers the sensor in that spot. And I will say like at least half of the time you get bats going the other way. Um, I still like this photo, but you don't get the face. But you will eventually get a bat that is doing, um, coming the right way you want it, and maybe going into the water the way you want it. There's a few things you can do to kind of improve your chances, and one of those is to have multiple cameras. So in these three photos is the same animal at the exact same time. And you can see in the first photo, if I only have had that camera, I would have been getting a shot of just of the back. But thankfully, I had the other two, and I was able to get two more angles that work a lot better. And another thing I really like about this approach is that you can encounter a lot of like unexpected things, and even small ponds that, this this is a pretty ugly little pond, I would say, will still give you like a whole world of opportunities of photos. So here in the right, I actually put a camera not aiming at the water. I just saw that there were a lot of like bugs flying around the pond, so I put the camera slightly higher, and I got this Myotis auriculus that was probably just foraging for those insects, even though it didn't came to drink. And you can apply this same idea to trails and get photos of bats commuting to play through places. Um, and also you can like be very flexible with how you frame it. So like if you want to show some vegetation or some structure on the key or whatever you are, you can also do that. Um, this is my friend Bruce and Randy um, here in Arizona. We went a couple months ago to Kofa to try to get some to the desert to try to get some photography of bats coming to the flowers, and we were applying this same technique to three or four different flowers, expecting the bats to come, and we spent almost the whole half night waiting for the bats, and at the end there wasn't a single no a single bat came to the flowers that we were targeting. But it was a lovely time. We talked a lot about photography and spend the time in the desert was really great. And what we did get in the flowers were these big moths. So I was very happy to at least, you know, get something else, although the bats didn't came. And you can always get creative with what you get. In this case, in the right, I stack a lot of the frames that I got that night. So you can see the star trails. This actually different bright stars just going through the skies over 3 or 4 hours, and then um, the moths coming to the flowers. And this success rate can vary a lot. If you know a roost, then you are almost for certain you can get photos the night you go. Um, this is another photo from a couple of weeks. We were netting close to the south rim of the Grand Canyon, and it started raining. So I really took a risk there and say, okay, it doesn't seem like it's gonna rain that much. I'm gonna wait a bit, and I'm glad I did because I was able to get these photos of the bats flying in the rain. You can see all the droplets in the surface of the water, and despite it was raining, they will still be coming to drink. And I like this second photo, which has the bat going the wrong way, but you can see the shadow of a second one. Um, so it was pretty busy night despite water being everywhere. And like I said before, when you are photographing bats in situ without manipulation, you can also kind of come up with like surprises all the time, things that you cannot foresee at all. So this is a cave nectar bat from Malaysia back in February. Um, we were trying to get photos of the bats coming out of the cave, and this bat would have been way too big to fit in one of my bat boxes. So, um, plus it had a baby. So that was a super nice surprise that not only I was able to get one bat in the camera, but also that it was carrying a baby, something that would have been really hard to photograph um, with a capture animal. And you can encounter like a ton of different behaviors. This is from Australia. I was with Juliana waiting for bats in the nets, and there we were able to see these little red flying foxes coming to the flowers. And so it's great. And again, like zero manipulation of, they were actually pretty high in the trees. So no matter how many bad photos you have seen up there, there are plenty of opportunities for photography. Um, we are just celebrating this bat species number 1500. There are tons of bats that we know pretty much nothing about, and let alone that have been photographed in a way that you can highlight their characteristics and or that can be used for outreach. And every month there's gonna be new ones coming. So yeah, like tons of opportunities. Plus there are all these like behavioral stuff. So like predators um, with bats, for example, which can be pretty sad for from the bad perspective, but that highlight the importance of the bats for the whole ecosystem and for other species, right? These are just a series of photos from Borneo. A lot of quite a few people in today here were there and were able to see this amazing event of mobs leaving the caves and all the predators gathering around. Um, but also you can document like bat species interacting with other bat species or very unique individual um, um, anomalies or characteristics like this albino dog-like face bat. or things that maybe for you as a researcher in another part of the planet are very common things, might be extremely im- fun or extremely interesting for other people in our country. So, for example, I don't get to see flying foxes growing up in Nicaragua or working here in the United States. So, uh, seeing these huge bats just hanging from the trees in the middle of the day is not a it's not a regular sighting to me for me. So, but it might be in your backyard, and I can only imagine like how many interactions and behavioral um, events you can like document just by photographing them during the day. A lot of bats have very unique morphology, so documenting those is also very fun. From like the suction cups of Thyroptera to this crazy nose leaves of some philostomets, or group behaviors, roosting. You all know about the tent making bats and how they construct this over time. So there's, there are limitless possibilities. And now I know that a lot of you have done beautiful photographs of bats, but maybe there's some people that are just starting, and for them, I would like to do a few suggestions. Um, the first one is like if you like bat photography, go take photos if you have a camera. Experimentation is essential, and you don't need to go like too far. In my case, I was lucky to grow up in Central America. Nicaragua has 116 species of bats, and it was relatively easy for me once I started working as a biologist to see a few. But bats could be living like in your house and on their neighbor's roof, and you can start from there. Like you don't have to go beyond your local park to start doing some photography. As a fun story, there was a species of Humops clausinus that I looked for years in Nicaragua, and um, I was truly going to places every summer trying to get them. And I did that maybe 2 or 3 years. And I finally got to see one. And that week after I did that, uh, caught one, I went home. And when I went home, I realized that there was a little stain on one of the beams of the roof of my house. And I was like, oh, there are bats living there. And guess what? I put a net. And the species I've been looking for 2, 3 years all over the country had a roost in my house. So that was pretty crazy, but it shows that you don't have to go far to find some pretty unique stuff. The other thing is like I show you a lot of photos of a lot of gear, a lot of stuff going on. Um, Often that gear is from more than one person. Someone is joining me and putting more cameras, but just the gear that you have, whatever you have. It can be very simple, and there's few things that you can do to make those photos um, great. So this is just to illustrate. This was my first ever try of a bat in flight. I had a very basic camera. This camera was from a friend, and I only had like two flashes. I kind of soldered some components of the sensor, and that this day I got this photo, and this photo is still today one of my favorite bat in flight photos I ever had. So you can do quite a lot with very little, and in the case of the portraits, um, the diffusers make a big change if you are trying to improve like on your photography. And with this, I want to say something is really important is like a happy bat is a good looking bat. Um, working on your handling and how you hold the bat in a more comfortable way, how trying to be quick with the processing, so and quick with taking the photos also makes a big difference. Try to minimize bright lights. I know we're using flash, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, but try to minimize like the constant lights of like headlamps and the ones you have in the processing station, and also being quiet are really important. So you keep the stress of the animal at the minimum, and they do look better when they are not stressed. When I say bright lights, I know I use flashes, but flashes have a really, really short duration. They are usually in the tens of thousands of a second duration. So it's like really, really fast. And I think I always like to think of like the difference between seeing a flash from something, like you're walking on the street and there's like a car turning, and you get a bit of the windshield reflection versus staring at the sun. There's one that's gonna bother you a lot more than the other one, and it all has to do with the duration of that light. Um, so yeah, that's one of recommendation. Happy to talk more about that if you have questions at the end. But I want to really acknowledge all the people that have been able to help me over the time or the years to um, join them in the field, or to help me process bats, and are kind enough that let me like step on the side and go get some of the photos. These are just some people from that have joined me in, or I've been able to join them in the last couple of years. But um, yeah, um, there are so many. I wouldn't be able to name them all right now. But like I say, a lot of the photography is done when I'm doing field work, and without people helping me process the 200 bats that we can get in an hour and a half sometimes, there will be no way to do photography. Um, Another thing is like even very simple photos, um, with help of friends, you can improve upon more easily. So here we're in a cave, and I have my two friends helping me to hold the flashes and get photos of this hairy-legged vampire bat. And because the flash is not coming from one side or straight from the camera, it gives it a bit more depth and a bit more texture. And again, like my friends are actively helping me to get these photos, not only like holding the flash, but kind of also telling me, oh, the bat moved here because I was maybe checking the first photo, or this another one, or this one just fly in, or helping me focus. And so a lot of this photography is big time team effort, and we get to go to these beautiful places. So I want to say thanks to all of you, and thank you to organizations that have helped support the field work. Thank you GBAT.net for inviting me to this talk, and yeah, I will take questions at this time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jose. That was absolutely fantastic. And like you said, the floor is open for questions, or if you would like to put your question in the chat, please feel free to do so. Oh, we've got a question from Isabel.
Yes. Hi. Thank you so much, Jose. That was so good. I really enjoyed it, and it's just astonishing to see your work. But I mean, I think I'm gonna ask the most cliche question now. Do you have like a wish list photo that you want to take from now on? Like, what's the one thing you want to achieve?
So Yeah, great question. And thank you for the translation from the German caption. Uh, um, well, like we say, we we are just celebrating the species number 1500. Um, I have photographed 246. I'm not counting. I am. So yeah, the list is about it's almost 1300 species long. Um, I know it will be impossible to photograph every single species in the world, and but I one goal I think I have in life is to get to see and photograph at least one species of each family, and I think that's a bit more doable. Um, I definitely wanna keep doing more in situ photos. I would like to l- learn and develop better techniques for having bats carrying food. So that's one of, I would say those are kind of like the two things. One more taxonomical, a species for each family, and the other one with bats carrying, dispersing seeds or carrying fruit or insects or food. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
follow-up question because it kind of relates to your second point? I will probably have to take pictures of flying foxes in the near future. And I've sort of figured out small bat portraits on my setup, but the flying foxes threw me off completely the last time I tried. Do you have any like off the cuff tips of how to get a flying fox portrait or like a bigger bat portrait to look good?
So I have very limited experience with in-hand flying foxes. I was in Malaysia. We were able to manipulate some of the smaller ones, and those weren't that much different than with microbats to me, like a large microbat. Um, I I will say I always say people is the handling is kind of like a big part of it, and the sooner you can get the photo, I think the better. Like when I'm with my crew, like in Nicaragua, I know I really want a photo one bad, and I can maybe idea what I'm taking it out of the net. I just run first to try to get the photo because yeah, a lot of bats um, kind of like stress really quick. So by the
Hmm.
time you process it, um, they might already like fold the ears and they will not like put them
Mm.
back again or that kind of thing. Another one is with the lights. I was talking about using reducing bright lights. Um, I always try to use red light to do all the manipulation um, because I think that bothers them less and it's just like more calm environment for them. And I think that helps a lot on on the on the the final photos that you can get. I have never hold bats long enough that I have to like feed them or like have them in like in a fly cage for a long time. So um but I know some people like some other photographer will like feed them and stuff. I I haven't had that much experience with that.
Okay. Thank
Sorry.
you so
Yeah.
much.
No, thank you.
We did have a question in the chat, which was, which one would be the hardest bat species for capture in a flight photo?
Oh, thank you. I I find molluscs very tricky. Like molluscs high are like either high or high speed flyers, and they don't fly out of my bat box, and I haven't had many luck with them coming to drink in the ponds I have try. They here in northern Arizona, where I'm doing a lot of the bad drinking photos, they use like very big ponds, and those big ponds are that I have not been able to kind of like come up with or at least I haven't had the time to try put the setup in a really big pond, and it will be very tricky because when you are working on a small pond, you at least know you can focus within a meter of where the animal might come through, and especially if the pond is like long, you kind of know they're gonna go the long way. But if it's like a cattle tank that is circular and it's completely open, there's no flyway, it, that makes it pretty hard. But I think eventually there's gonna be like one place that will allow to do some of those photos for me. But um, yeah, I got a lot of like big U mobs that I wish I had a photo in flight photo, but I don't have a solution for it yet. Yeah.
I've got a question, and then I guess if there's no others, then we can wrap up for today. But I was wondering for anyone in the room that is an aspiring photographer, and let's say that they have the camera and they're ready, but there's one more piece of essential equipment. What piece of equipment, if you've got the camera, what other piece of equipment would you recommend that you've got to have with you?
I will say, and this is something I do if I'm going to a trip where I cannot bring a lot of gear and I have to essentials only. I will bring my camera with a macro lens, and then if there's one more item that will fade, it will be an external flash, um, and then like a little diffuser. And for diffuser, you can use. I have used like a t-shirt, a white t-shirt. It can be you can a white t-shirt with duct tape works, but I will say that will be kind of like the minimal kit that really will greatly improve the photos you can do compared to just using the bare camera.
All right. Well, do we have any more questions? We had a bunch of very nice things that were said in the chat. Oh, we do have one more question. Okay. If you go ahead, feel free to ask.
Oh, hi,
Hey,
Tony.
sorry, I couldn't figure out how to raise hand. I guess I'm getting that old that I can't use Zoom anymore. Um, well, we know field work is a super dirty thing. How do you keep your equipment well safe? And can you give us some tips and tricks how you take care of your equipment?
Absolutely. Let me see if I can find. So I mentioned that this was my first in-flight photo ever. I mean, setup, and you can tell here that I have a Pelican case, and that was because this was not my first camera. My first DSLR died with mold growing inside. So yes, it was. I mean, I had the camera, and for moments I will like look through it, and then there will be like a little insect running around in the viewfinder, and yeah, especially the tropics are very harsh on equipment. Um, but so yeah, like one of the things I learned was that like airtight boxes are great to store the equipment, and if you can use like silica gel that are relatively cheap and you can kind of like re-dry because those were really hard to find in Nicaragua when I started. So they can be recharged, and after every trip I have my little like routine of disassembling everything, cleaning everything. I use like a toothbrush to kind of scrape all the dirt and like wet spots out of the cameras and open the lenses, and I would put them in a little like plastic box with the silica gel all open so they fully dry, and that has been very good at avoiding having mold again. Another thing is that, and thank you for the question because I forgot to mention this. We researchers that go in case from one place to another, and sometimes across countries, I also make sure that I wipe all the equipment in between sites. I clean the legs of the tripods. I with the tripods it's easier to use like dunk them in like bleach water or something and then put them in the sun. But um, yeah, same with the cameras and the gloves that you use. So I try to be very, let's say, like take care of the equipment, but also for the animals and places we go. Does that give you an idea? I don't know of
A
the
pretty good
question.
one, especially if you
Oh,
don't
yeah,
want to have bugs inside your camera.
yeah.
You're
That
just
that
a
was pretty
painting
sad.
job.
My first camera, and I don't like mold.
All right. Well, we are at the top of the hour. So again, like big round of applause for Dr. Jose Martinez-Fonseca. Thank you so much for presenting today.
Thank you so much for the invite, and thank you everyone for all the
Yes.
support and
Thank
kind
you.
words.
Thank you everyone for coming today and for asking such great questions. And hopefully we'll see you at the next GBATnet My Field for Dummies webinar.